So it's the beginning of yet again another beautiful week in the Transformer world. So let's jump into a Transformer Slag Patreon listener question. If you want to be part of the Transformer Slag Patreon, help support the podcast and let us know we're doing a half-decent job in the daily world of Transformer news and educational videos teaching you about the craziness of this hobby. Patreon.com/Protoman. Check the pinned comment or the description below. Come join us. What does that get you? It gets your name in the end credit scroll at the end of every segment moving forward. Access to the Transformer Slag Patreon Discord. A lot of cool stuff going on there. News breaks, lore, deals. Oh, there's a lot of deals that are going to be happening over the next couple weeks, starting this weekend with Black Friday. We keep you up to date on all that stuff so you could save money in your hobby. And of course, the Patreon listener question. And we got a Patreon listener question from longtime patron Starlight4. And Starlight4 wants to know, my question is to you, Transformers Universe 1.0 has a bunch of cool store-exclusive toys that never came out. They got as far as the prototype or even the test shot stage, but were never released. Was Universe 1.0 doing badly? And why didn't they come out? What happened to these figures? Well, thank you, Starlight4. These were a lot of weird stuff. The thing is, I just want to just jump a little back a little bit. So Universe 1.0, for people that weren't in the fandom around that time, there was a line of Transformers that came out in 2003 called Transformers Universe. Very different from what we know today with like Classics Universe and everything like that. Classics Universe and Generations. We call that Universe 2.0 now in the Transformer fandom. But there was Universe 1.0. Came out in 2003, and it was kind of born out of BotCon having way too many ideas that just never got to have toys at a time when BotCon was lucky to have maybe 2 or 3 exclusives a year. You know, obviously the Fun Pub era in 2005 onward would have big box sets and side figures. You'd get like 12, 13 figures a BotCon. But back then you got maybe 2 or 3 if you were lucky, and there was all these great ideas on the table, and Hasbro had a really good relationship with BotCon, and there was like, hey, why don't we just do this subline called Universe? We could kind of create a story with it. The comics were sold through BotCon, and, you know, we could do all these fun little repaints, and it would be a low-cost line to make in a lot of ways, because you'd just be able to repaint toys, you know, do little box art, simple packaging, and you're good to go. And it wasn't really, you know, show supported. It didn't have a show. It didn't have a movie. It just had like a very limited run comic book that was kind of telling a story on the side. There was like a DVD pack-in kind of little motion story thing too, but that's about it really. So this line chugged along very slowly, just relying on repaints of what was available at the time, Armada molds, maybe even late G2 molds and Beast Wars molds and Beast Machines molds, a little bit of everything. Kind of like the greatest hits of Transformers in a lot of ways, with brand new characters using those molds. But it didn't find incredible success, and as a result, after just a couple years, kind of just got canceled quietly. And then, of course, it kind of survived in a rebranding kind of way, where the spirit of the line, being repaints of old molds, survived through a lot of, we call them like spiritual successors to Universe, which were, it's called Transformers, and it has kind of Armada packaging shape, but it's not really Universe, and it's not really anything. And, you know, there'd be a lot of these Market 6 kind of stuff, which I'll get into Market 6 in a moment. But, you know, it was what it was, and, you know, the last true Universe 1.0 toy was that Chevy Aveo Swerve, and even then, that kind of has a weird history. And one day I want to maybe do a whole segment just about the Chevy Aveo Swerve because of how weird it is and all the crazy stuff with it. I know we talked about it many years ago, but I'd like to kind of revisit it because a lot of cool stuff going on there. But that was kind of like the last one. That came out in October of 2008. And the following year, we'd have the rebrand of Universe as a Classics Universe Generations kind of thing. So that was kind of technically one of the last Universe toys. But also kind of had a weird development. And it didn't get released. It did get released, but not really. You know, kind of a weird story with that. But we'll jump into the ones that obviously our patron is referring to here. You know, there's a lot of cool stuff to discuss because there was a lot of cool stuff that came out, and Starlight 4 wants to know what was the story with these. So in 2004, there was a big push for store exclusives. Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, they all wanted store exclusives of Transformer stuff because it did very well for them. And they got a lot of them. And like the very first unreleased universe stuff that we'll talk about, which was the Halloween Horrorcon value packs, which were shown and never came out, were supposed to be Walmart exclusives. Now in 2003, 2004, Walmart had a ton of Transformer Universe exclusives. They had like the Spy Changer exclusive packs, which are like Ultra Magnus and Ironhide, Optimus Prime and Prowl. That's like the yellow Optimus Prime that's been retconned female since then. They had the Sideburn repaints, the Prowl repaints, the Ruination repaints, the Sunstorm sets, which were really cool actually. Just a whole bunch. Just a whole bunch of them. And a lot of them actually didn't sell well for them. So when the Halloween Horrorcons were presented to them as Walmart exclusives, they kind of passed on it because they were just like, man, these probably won't sell well either, considering how all our other stuff hasn't been selling very well. And again, it's older molds that were really maybe 2 or 3 years old. People already got their fix from those molds. Maybe they weren't feeling the new repaints of them, a yellow Optimus Prime or a black Ironhide. A black pickup truck Ironhide didn't do well. A couple years later, I wonder how that'll work out. There was a lot of weird stuff from the perspective of the fans, and people weren't buying it. So when they were presented with these, like, hey, we're going to take 2 Beast Wars Deluxes and slap them into a box and sell it like that for the Halloween season, no one was feeling it. So, it was supposed to be like a October 2004 kind of release. Never happened. And what they were, it was supposed to be Mutants Soundwave, which was the supposed to be released Animorph toy that then was turned into a Beast Wars toy. A Mutant Soundwave, which was a bat that turned into a crocodile but didn't really have a robot mode, kind of had a head showing. There's a whole different story with how those toys were engineered. And it was supposed to come with a black Arachnia that had a brand new color scheme based off of her original Beast Wars toy, aka Tarantulas toy. And it didn't happen. And the Soundwave was the Soundwave was going to be called, I believe it was Leatherhide, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was Leatherhide. It was going to be called Leatherhide, and it had like a blue color scheme, so kind of invoking that, hey, it's Soundwave colors, because this mold was once called Soundwave, right? And nothing really came of it. Those 2 never got released. And then there was a second pack that was supposed to have this new character called Night Prowler, which was a kind of like a gray snow leopard kind of color scheme for Cheetor, the original 1995-1996 first Cheetor toy, and a Waspinator done in a very Skywarp kind of colors, but since it's the Transmetal Waspinator, it turns into also that jet mode with a very, again, Skywarp kind of color scheme. And also that one didn't get picked up. Both of these for Walmart. And like I said, the reasons for it was they had so many Walmart exclusives from Universe and they didn't sell very well. So it was just like, ooh, that's not going nowhere. That's really, really, really not going anywhere. And they passed on it. Now, the kind of the good news in that is the spirit of some of these kind of lived on, in that the Waspinator color scheme was used by Bakon years later, by Jesse, one of the guys that I worked with Bakon when we were doing repaints and stuff. And he made, I think it was, what was it called there? I think it was called Wasp Warp or something like that. Jesse, I apologize, but I forget what was his idea, but he pretty much took that color scheme and put it on the Generations Waspinator to kind of bring an homage back to that unreleased toy in a lot of ways. And the other ones really haven't had any homages since, but I mean, hey, who knows what the future might bring. We might get a Cheetor mold that might have that Night Prowler color scheme, or a black Arachnia. Who knows what the future would bring with those. Now, there was other ones too. There was a Target exclusive, which was supposed to be, if anyone remembers those Battle in the Box sets, which they had like Ultra Magnus and what's it called there, Nightbeat and stuff like that. They did these like little box sets that had the characters beating up each other, And there was supposed to be one of Smokescreen and Drench, which the Smokescreen was a G1 Smokescreen colored Armada Hotshot, and a G2 Drench colored Armada Sideswipe. I think it was Sideswipe? Yeah, it was Sideswipe. No, Wheeljack, excuse me. It was Armada Wheeljack, done from, it's all these trademark names that are all over the place. Armada Wheeljack repainted as G2 Drench. And same thing, supposed to be a Target exclusive. Didn't happen. They tried to sell it to the Market 6 world. And for people that aren't familiar with what the Market 6 world is, it's an industry term, pretty much. The toy industry term, which refers to different companies or different distributors that aren't part of the Big Five. And the Big Five at that time in 2003, 2004, from top to bottom of sales, was Walmart, Target, Toys R Us, KB Toys, and Kmart. Those were the Big Five. So Market 6 was stuff outside of the Big Five. So it could be like Ross, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, even Walgreens at the time even fell into the Market 6 kind of category. Ironic, because now years later in 2021, Walgreens is now part of what we refer to as the Big Three, because you have Walmart, you have Target, and you have Walgreens. That's it. There's no, now there is no more Toys R Us. There is no KB Toys. There is no Kmarts. Actually, there's some Kmarts still surviving in the backwoods of some places, but in general, they're all gone. So these were also, they tried with even the Market 6 exclusives, and it didn't happen. Didn't get released. And it was primarily why? Because Target was like, hey, we had exclusives with you guys. We had like that Overbite, Repugnus 2-pack, the Nemesis Prime, which, by the way, is fantastic. That's the Bloody Tusk Big Convoy repaint. They had a whole bunch of 2-packs, and they didn't sell well. They didn't sell well at all. People weren't interested in them. Maybe they thought they were too pricey. Maybe the molds weren't appealing. Again, it's a lot of old molds of characters that they couldn't really identify with because there was no existing media to kind of promote that. And if you did get those toys or you did get those molds, there wasn't too exciting about it. Again, the Nemesis Prime, because it was a Japanese mold of a big convoy character, that would be appealing, but the others really didn't. And those other 3-packs just kind of 2-packs sat around forever, and Target wasn't interested. They really weren't, so they passed up on it, and that Smokescreen and that Drench ended up never happening. Now, again, what's the good news with this one? Well, that Drench concept, that Drench repaint from that Armada Wheeljack mold, ended up getting used in BotCon years later as the BotCon 2008 Shattered Glass character. So, hey, Shattered Glass Sideswipe, now in Drench. That color scheme survived in some shape or form. You're going to see a bit of a trend here going on with all of these unreleased figures because they still find a way to survive. Next one we got here is in Universe 2004. What about a Toys R Us exclusive? Was there any stuff that was planned for Toys R Us that got canceled with Universe? There was Space Warp. And Space Warp was they took that Armada, I guess at the time it was called an Ultra class or whatever they called the GigaCon class. I hate the price point naming for Armada. It's so confusing. Even Aaron Archer was like, man, what were we thinking? The Armada Jet Fire was repainted in kind of a purple kind of color scheme. They called it Space Warp, and it was supposed to come with some brand new repaints of the Minicon Space Team. And, of course, it would come with his Minicon that was packed in, too. And ultimately, it just didn't happen. Toys R Us was not feeling it. They were just like, you know what? It's a big, expensive price point. It's like you take something that's already that GigaCon Ultra class, add another 3-pack of Minicons on it. It was too expensive. They didn't feel it. They weren't in the mood for that kind of thing. And at that point already, Universe was kind of on its way out, and the sales were already not looking good. To create a big price point figure like that wasn't going to happen. The good news, again, like I always say, the concept of it ended up getting recycled and reused as one of the very first exclusives used for the Transformer Collector Club through FunPub in 2005. So it kind of survived. Instead, now it wasn't Space Warp anymore. Now it was Astro Train. They renamed. They didn't use the Space Minicons. They used the Giant Planet Minicons, and they renamed them as Hook, Line, and Sinker. So we got kind of those classic, Marvel comic book characters given toys. So kind of a better end of the story in the end. And I love that Astro Train repaint. It's such a great mold if you could get your hands on it. And then, of course, years later, again, courtesy of Jesse from BotCon. He just kind of was like, hey, why don't we take that old Space Warp idea and kind of finally give him his first and only figure. And when we got that double Pretender Megatron from the Collector Club 5.0, which was the Pretender Shell Megatron using the Grand Maximus Pretender Shell, it came with the little Space Warp Minicon using the exact same color scheme that was originally intended for that large figure. So he kind of survived in that kind of way. Isn't that great? Now, then we have the final year of Universe in its retail survival, and it was that in 2005, and there was 2 big Optimus Prime repainted figures that were planned, and both of them got canceled just due to low sales and lack of interest from the line as a whole. The first one, that being Toxotron. Now, Toxotron was a Constructicon colored, I guess is the best way to put it, the garish green and purples, or yellow greens and purples of a G2 Laser Optimus Prime, aka Laser Rod Optimus Prime. And they were going to call it Toxotron. It'll be an evil repaint. And that was that. It didn't even get past the test shot phase. They really didn't even try to shop it around because most places weren't interested in such big price point product like that. Universe wasn't selling well. And people finally got to see this figure in person. If you went to BotCon 2007, they had it in the glass displays there. So it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. It was on the Hasbro tour if you went in 2007. And it was pretty cool to see it in person. They didn't have the sword with it, if I remember correctly. But it was still a pretty awesome figure. And I kind of hope one day we see it maybe in the future. And I'll mention that in a moment. Now, again, the good news, like I keep going back to, is Fun Publication loved that idea. And after 2007, seeing it in person at the BotCon tour, the BotCon Hasbro tour, we'd have an animated Toxotron used for the 2011 animated set. So, hey, we got an animated version. And then the Transformer Collector Club subscription service, we got a Voyager class Combiner War Toxotron, using that Combiner Wars Optimus Prime mold with a brand new head sculpt and everything. So, hey, you still got your Toxotron fix. It's out there. It's delicious. And maybe we'll get a different version of it, because now that we have the Legacy, Transformers Legacy Laser Optimus Prime mold, yeah, sure, we're going to probably get a Scourge Black repaint out of it, Black Convoy, but maybe we'll get a Toxotron out of it also. Who knows what the future might bring. And the very last one here is we have Motormaster. Now, Motormaster was going to be called Menasor due to trademark reasons, because they didn't have the Motormaster trademark at the time. And it was going to be a repaint of originally the UK Thunderclash mold. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at the mold, it's actually a repaint of the Machine Wars Optimus Prime that came from Thunderclash. Now, the Machine Wars Optimus Prime, what's the difference between the two? The missile gimmick was remolded and changed for the Machine Wars version, and so it kind of uses that version of the mold. So this really is a repaint of the Machine Wars Optimus Prime, and it was done in that, purples and kind of, let's get that Stunticon flavor of a Menasor, aka Motormaster kind of look. Too big, too expensive, no place was interested, and it ultimately did not happen. This one got as far as the test shot stage, didn't get any paint decos, just kind of the core prototype of it, and someone did some box art for it within Hasbro internal, but nothing ever came of it ultimately in the end. The idea of using Menasor for Motormaster's name for trademarks would get used a few times, most infamously known. The San Diego Comic-Con Titanium 6-inch Rodimus was repainted into a black repaint with purple and everything, and was called Menasor, but was technically supposed to be Motormaster, with a little bit of fictional twists and turns to kind of make all in one. Very, very confusing. But that's what happened more or less to all of those. They just, Universe was kind of short-lived, and sales weren't really that great, but because of how low cost it was to run that operation and getting so much use out of a lot of molds that really didn't have a lot of action, that's what kind of kept it around. And it was really big, expensive stuff that didn't happen. 2-packs, large price point figures. That's what really made stuff not happen. was, more of the smaller figures, individual releases, or 2-packs of small price points, like 2 basics as a 2-pack, or like little, I guess we'll call them like Spy Changers or Basic Class or Legends. Those had more of a chance of happening. But the second you put 2 deluxes in a pack, certain stores got nervous. When you put an Ultra Class with a whole bunch of stuff, or big, like Leader Class stuff, which, Leaders didn't exist back then, but an equivalency of that, of a Supreme, if you will. That's when they kind of, backed off, and when Universe's sales were getting really shaky to begin with, and then it really fell off the deep end, a lot of stuff got cut. But like I said, there's kind of a good ending to a lot of these repaints. They have found a different way spiritually to survive through other releases and other homages and toys. And still to this day, who knows? Maybe we'll get a Halloween Horrorcon Black Arachnia one day. Got to do something with that Black Arachnia mold. There's only been 2 repaints so far. Maybe we'll see a 3rd one, a 4th one, a 5th one. That's what Gen Selects is for, and a lot of other stuff. Who knows what the future will bring? But that's for another story. And I hope this was a little bit educational for some of you guys, and I hope Starlight 4 liked what they heard. And if you want to be like Starlight 4 and be part of the Patreon and ask a Patreon listener a question, or just want to help support the podcast and let us know we're doing a decent job, and come join us on the Discord. Again, patreon.com/protoman, or check the pinned comment or description below. And I hope you learned something in this crazy Transformer world, and take care of yourself on this beautiful week ahead of us.